Welcome to this episode of Biz Takeouts, Biz Community Soundbite Size Used to Go, made possible by Wunderman Thompson, the country's oldest traditional advertising agency and tech firm, and Vodacom, a leading and purpose-led African connectivity, digital, and financial services company. I'm your host, Angie Lawrence, and I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest. Dominique Baxabanis is the content director at Wunderman Thompson, and Sunaina Parbu is the portfolio manager of social media and content marketing at Vodacom. And today they'll be sharing behind the scenes details about the Be the Light campaign. Welcome, Dominique and Sunaina.
Hi, Thanks so much, Angie, for having us.
So let's jump straight in. Maybe Sue, you can start. What sparked the idea for this campaign? How did the idea come about?
From a Vodacom perspective, we've always been doing GBV campaigns and initiatives to help raise awareness around this ill in our society. What we noticed from previous campaigns is that the youth-generated conversation was largely from women. And so this really drove the need for us to get more men involved in speaking about GBV and also showing their commitment or talking about ways to actually address it. So we also in Vodacom launched the Vodacom Bright Sky app, and this helps victims to get support that they need, and it created, this important message that we really wanted to convey to the public.
I think to Sunaina's point, Vodacom and their parent organization Vodafone have quite an established track record on championing equality and women's empowerment in the digital society. But we all understand that equality is not possible when women are at risk. So Sunaina and I are both staunch supporters of this. We are quite passionate about the GBV conversation and female empowerment. And at the time, Wunderman Thompson was managing Vodacom's social media and content marketing hub, and I was the creative lead, and Sunaina was my client. And it was just almost this natural development for us to build upon the work that had already been done in the GBV space by the brand and turn it into this ongoing response versus a campaign in the traditional sense. So we really just wanted to have this pervasive, socially driven response to the issue of gender-based violence in South Africa, but lasting beyond Women's Month and the 16 days of activism.
Definitely sounds like it is close to the heart. I can hear you both very passionate about it. Maybe you can both touch on why there was such a need to address this solution.
I think just contextually in 2020, we were faced with lockdown, obviously due to COVID. But as the president mentioned in his speech, there was a second pandemic that was raging, which was the rise in GBV cases. These numbers were actually quite alarming, with a woman being murdered every 3 hours in SA, and 1 in 4 women who will experience gender-based violence. So this reality was also there before lockdown and before COVID. We had then made a decision to speak about gender-based violence consistently through the year. In doing this, we wanted to leverage the voices of men within our business to speak up, shine the light on violence against women and children, and try and really help the women out there.
I think I just want to add to that as South Africans and brands, especially as corporate social entities, it's quite important for us to use the power we have to address these ills. So in terms of the need and solution, to Sunaina's point, this was our second pandemic, and we all felt that it was right for Vodacom to really step up the efforts and do what they can to address this.
Well, the stats are certainly alarming, and yeah, indeed it can be called a pandemic. But you've also had to deal with the COVID pandemic affecting, and tell me, how has this affected the ideation or the planned marketing for this campaign?
So, from a content creation perspective, we had some very interesting challenges in that regard. It was probably the first time I had to direct something remotely, because we really had to scale down our production efforts. So because we were conducting video interviews, we obviously had our talent, and in this case it was the men of Vodacom in the room, and then we had our production team. So we really scaled it down to a team of 3 human beings who were on set on that day, because the first batch of content was filmed during lockdown level 2 or 3, and everything was very restricted. We were lucky we had access to a boardroom at Vodacom, so it was a nice big space. But in terms of COVID protocols, everything was airtight. So there was just a lot of nuance in terms of the actual creation of the content. But beyond that, Wunderman and Vodacom, luckily, had adopted this remote working culture quite easily. So by the time this was set into place, we already had our teams meetings, we already had our review processes in place. So it was, the ways of working were there, and the flow was quite nice. I would say it's challenging reviewing quite large video assets in a remote space because there's a lot of upload and download happening, but most of that part was really great. It was literally just that how do we navigate this in-person situation when people are actually still quite scared of this disease, because it was quite early in the pandemic as well. So there was a lot of learnings that we took from that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has learned that they can actually live with quite a little, but in this case, it sounds like it was quite hectic to do such a huge thing with so few people. So that it sounds like quite a feat that you've overcome there. But besides the ins and outs of the actual filming, which channels did you use to bring this campaign to life?
So part of our content strategy was really to ensure mass reach on social channels. We know that this is where the conversations are happening. We know that in order to reach and drive that user-generated content, as Sunena mentioned, especially with men, we really needed to make sure that we were having conversations where people are in the way that resonates with them. So we really leaned heavily into mobile-first executions, video being a key component of our campaign, and then we had static executions for support. So we really had a response across Vodacom's owned channels, which is the blog and the website, which Sunena can speak to. And then we also had a very strong social media presence, activating on LinkedIn, speaking to men in business, activating on Twitter, speaking to men in those audience sets. We were also aware that many South African consumers are data sensitive, so the videos that we did use were compressed as much as possible. Any static executions we had were high impacts. There were just a lot of messages combined into the single narrative of, as a man in South Africa, taking accountability and the next action for the gender-based violence. So in terms of our Men of Influence videos, which involved Vodacom Exco, these were very to the point, talking heads type videos where men spoke about how, as a man, they can take accountability and ownership within the issue. They can drive influence in their circles, and also how they can call other men out. We also then included other content like interviews with first-line responders who would speak about how to recognize the signs of GBV, what to do if you or someone you care about is in that situation. We interviewed a martial arts self-defense coach who spoke about how you can speak out for others who are unable to speak out for themselves. And then we also partnered with things like important numbers like Suicide Helpline, Vodacom's Gender-Based Violence Command Center, and then later on also the Bright Sky app.
Yeah, I think also just to add from what Dom mentioned, I mean, we used the Men of Influence, and not only did they speak about this as part of a voice of Vodacom, but also in their individual circles and on their own social profiles, which helped to really bring this campaign to life. We, like Dom also mentioned, there's lots of content pieces that went out, and so to really bring it together, we drove consumers to our now.vodacom blog, which housed all the essential educational videos and tips that gave also the consumers an option to pledge their own support in the fight against GBV, which was their own action that they could take on the page.
Oh, it sounds like so much thought and effort has gone into making sure that this campaign reaches as many people as possible. But tell me a bit about the results. What were they, and were any of them unexpected? And what role did COVID play in it, if any?
I think from a normal, the campaign results perspective, I think the content, firstly, that went out was during, a time when it was needed most to address the GBV cases over lockdown. And with this, we were obviously able to motivate to get as much support across the business as possible. Our campaign drove 37 million impressions, just under 600,000 engagements, 640,000 video views. It drove downloads of our Bright Sky app. around 820,000 downloads at the time we ran the campaign. And also we had 10 million donated to the GBV response fund. We also saw the impact through our CEO during a Facebook Live event, which was part of the campaign, which included a panel of GBV survivors and advocates for the fight against GBV. And in that session, our CEO decided to donate additional funds towards the GBV fund, which was really amazing. And also another nice announcement during that session was Masingita Masunga was appointed as the brand ambassador to the Vodacom Foundation to help us as a brand champion the values upheld by the foundation, and to focus on areas of education and gender empowerment. So it was really, I think, a campaign that really came together, and lots of elements that helped to bring that, helped to drive that reach of a very important message during the time of COVID and lockdown.
I think also just to add to that, as marketers, and on both brand and agency side, we do love our vanity metrics. We like high reach, we like views to completion, and quite a few videos had actually been viewed to completion, which is great to see in this attention grabbing landscape of ours. But I think the tangible results were what mattered to us most as human beings. Just that measurable societal impact, like the donation that Vodacom and the CEO actually put forward, and also the men who we challenged in our Influential Men series. So we ensured that each man who was the lead in the campaign put the content out onto their own social platforms as well, and challenged the men they know to take direct action. So I know that outside of the donation that Sue mentioned, the AB Makotsane also started a bursary program through AAA, and he pledged to take a young Black woman in marketing and fund her studies from start to finish. We know that Mike Stockford also took up on that challenge, and he donated through to an organization in, I think, Benoni. Several men put their hands up and started, getting their hands dirty in actionable points. So just really doing rather than saying, which I think was probably the most important part for us at the end of the day.
It's really great to hear about the physical, tangible results. And I mean, the metrics, like you say, are always great to look at, but the tangible results that you can see and actually experience, that really, really speaks volumes for this type of campaign. But besides those amazing results, did you experience any challenges with this campaign?
I think every marketer would say they wish they had more budget, so I'll be that marketer. But really, I think we had an overall great, overwhelmingly great response from men that we approached within the business to take on this campaign, take a stance. And I just recall each and every one of them being like eager to use their voice to raise that awareness and drive action against GBV. So this was like really a wonderful outcome for us. I think outside of the challenge of it being during COVID and lockdown, which Tom mentioned earlier, it really was a campaign that was easy enough to execute, just due to the overwhelmingly great response we got. So that was really like a highlight for us.
Yes, I definitely think that, I mean, most South Africans, or all South Africans, are really hungry for this type of campaign to really make a change in our society. So I can't imagine anything less than the great results that you've been seeing. You did touch a little bit on this, but do you have any standout memories from the campaign or any lessons that you've learned?
Yeah, I have quite a few actually. It was quite an important piece of work for both of us and my team involved. It was very close to our hearts. As I mentioned earlier on, I had to direct the first set of videos remotely over WhatsApp and Teams. So one of the most powerful moments for me in the beginning was actually reviewing that footage. And with the first interview we conducted was with AB, and I viewed the raw footage, and then I viewed the first edits, and I had actual goosebumps. He was so intense. He was so impactful with what he had to say. He was stern, and he was really speaking as a man who's pretty disappointed in the men of South Africa for being this way. And it set such a strong and powerful tonality for what we had to achieve. And it was just kept on being built on. We had the actual group CEO involved. We had hit all the HODs. So they were very powerful men who took the time to be humble and speak with us in a very vulnerable and authentic way. So that leads to that second point when I was on one of the second shoots where we actually interviewed Shamil Yusuf, and he had just gotten off the phone as he walked into the room. He had been watching the live stream and he got off the phone and he had made this call to actually kickstart this donation to, which was at the time the newly started Gender-Based Violence Fund, which was there to really help victims get out of these situations, because you realize that it's all good and well to tell women get out, get out, get out, but the financial impact of GBV is measurable and women often have nowhere to go. So that fund was started to help women, and Vodacom put forth a hefty donation at the start, and in part because of the work we had done. It had inspired action within the organization. And I think the third one for me was also not a standout memory so much as a moment of pride and respect for my client partners for being bold enough to help us expand the conversation outside of safe spaces. So they were really bold enough to let us have that difficult conversation about how GBV is impacting the LGBTQ community. So we had the chair of the Vodacom LGBT committee come through. He was also interviewed, and we had some very honest and honestly quite hard conversations about things like corrective rape, which is pretty touchy, and it's quite a bold stance for a brand to actually adopt. And I think I was incredibly proud of everyone involved that they were willing to have those conversations. It's not every brand that'll let you speak about things like that on social media. So that was very important to me.
From my side, I think like just from the onset of this campaign, it's something we knew, Dom and I, we were passionate about it and really wanted to, drive that reach of this important message. And just from the onset and seeing the concepts that Dom and the team brought forward was like really inspiring and made me excited to want to be a part of it. And obviously that helped garner the support of employees and senior leadership within the business, which was great to be able to use our senior leadership's voices to do the job of raising awareness across our social platforms as well as within their own social circles was like really powerful. Like Dom mentioned, even our CEO support to secure additional funding was another major step for us. So another major highlight is it really does enable survivors of gender-based violence to get financial support, which is obviously a much needed step once they've taken that brave step of leaving unhealthy relationships. I think overall, each leader really brought a very unique and powerful approach to conveying the importance of taking a stand against GBV, and with that was further amplified when we did our live stream and where we heard firsthand from women and victims of GBV, and even from our ambassador Masangita. It was just really such a powerful session to be a part of.
It sounds like this has really been an exciting campaign to work on, from the insights and the memories that you've shared. But now for the most important question, probably, do you have any plans to expand on this campaign?
I think as a brand and a purpose-led organization, we've always continuing the fight and doing what we can to further drive this the awareness and education around gender-based violence. We've launched our zero-rated Bright Sky app and invested 4.5 million rand in digital skills training, and these all work towards supporting and empowering gender-based violence survivors. We also always need to continue to educate women on seeing red flags. And I think these are the signs, obviously, that they should identify and be aware of in their relationships so that they can themselves end the cycle of abuse before that behavior escalates. So we currently have our See Red Flags campaign that's driving awareness around the Bright Sky app and is targeted at people that may be unassumingly early victims of gender-based violence, where they're in relationships where their partners are showing signs of jealousy, controlling either them or their finances, coerced into substance abuse, or even undergoing verbal abuse. And like creating awareness around this Bright Sky app helps to provide the support a woman would need in a situation where they find themselves in such a difficult situation. So I think we'll always be in that space of continuing to to drive education awareness around such a vital topic.
It's really amazing. So lots to look out for still to come. And really just congratulations just for doing this type of thing. I mean, it's so necessary, and this country really, really needs more of this and more of awareness around this issue. So just really well done on taking the initiative. That's the word I was looking for. And then last but not least, how can people get in touch?
If anyone wants to get in touch with me personally, I mean, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn under my profile, Sunaina Parvu, or even if anyone wants more information from a Vodacom perspective as well, you can reach out on our Vodacom social media platforms. I think also important to raise is if anyone finds himself in a situation where they're suspecting that they could be signs of early signs of gender-based violence, then they're able to reach out to the command center on 0800 428 428 or via USSD by dialing *120 *7867 hash. So that's just, I think raise awareness around getting help in the time that we find ourselves in is quite important.
And I think I'm also available on LinkedIn from an agency perspective. So obviously I'm with Wunderman Thompson. You can find me on LinkedIn under my exceptionally long surname. It's Dominique Maxivanos. There will be a link. And just to Sunaina's point again, yeah, there are a lot of resources. So there's no need to be silent. There are many issues that all all combine towards this societal ill. Mental health being another one. So I think if you are feeling the strain of anything, reach out to the suicide and depression and anxiety group, SADAG. There's also the depression hotline. There's Childline. There are so many free resources available. Don't be silent. Don't silence compliance. If you see people who are being impacted by this. So speak out and help those around you and help yourselves, really.
And that's a wrap on today's show, with thanks to Wunderman Thompson and Vodacom for making it possible. Biz Takeouts, take it where you like it, when you like it. Until next time.